and from the CAN team. And so it's the group Climate Action Now, and Tim Guinea is the president, and he's a veteran in numerous climate campaigns around the country, most notably as legislative coordinator for the New York Climate Reality Chapters Coalition. He's our former Vice President Al Gore awarded Tim the Alfredo Sirkis Memorial Green Ring Award for his work on the climate crisis. He is also a nationally known actor, in which capacity he founded Climate Actors at climateactors.org, an organization that empowers actors by providing them with facts and tools to speak with authority on the climate crisis. And in his spare time, he keeps bees, fights fires, and walks on wires. That's a poem. Anyway, that's a rhyme. So I also want to say, I think he's presently even on TV shows, right, Tim? So I think that's really exciting, and really happy to have you here. And your sidekick, Brett Walter, is also here in support. So just want to bring that to everyone's attention. So I will let you talk about the CAN app.
Thank you, Bonnie, so much. And I should mention, I think I'm Brett's sidekick. Brett founded this thing, created it, came up with the idea. He's a climate reality guy. He's the CEO and all of that. But before I start, I wanted to, first, I love you guys. This is so fantastic. Listening to the energy and the organization in the room. I loved Mary Ruth saying this is fun. That's the most fabulous thing ever. It reminded me, I'm sorry, I'm going to go off on a slight tangent. There was a terrible high pressure fossil fuel pipeline going through Memphis, Tennessee, through a environmental justice neighborhood with 5 times the national cancer rate, already had 17 toxic release inventory facilities. It crossed over an aquifer, which provided drinking water to 2 million Memphians in an area with more earthquakes than anywhere in the Southeast. And I put a kind of meeting together with a bunch of high-level environmentalists to meet an extraordinary activist named Justin J. Pearson, who really ran the campaign against this on the ground. And Bill McKibben was one of the folks I invited to come in, and Bill listened to Justin talking about the problem, and then he said, well, I hear you guys have really good barbecue in Memphis, and we should figure out where we're going to go to eat barbecue, because we're going to win this, and we're going to need a place to celebrate. When we did win this, which we did not only, the folks on the ground really did it. The people on Climate Action Now helped support them. But when we did win it, my phone rang, and it was Vice President Gore saying, thank you, Tim, that was a lot of fun. And it was. Bonnie's absolutely right. And if you're new to lobbying and stuff, dive in. I will tell you, often it's the person who's able to say, I've never been in a meeting like this, that gets a senator or a congressperson to lean forward, because they know you're stepping over a boundary of fear and uncomfortableness to be there, that it's that important to you. So never doubt how powerful you can be. And I guess the other thing, just in starting with my exuberance, it's been a hard week with Manchin doing what Manchin did, and tough stuff on a federal level. And as you guys, I think, must all know, action, to me at least, is the antidote to despair about the climate crisis. And we have to get in, we have to do things. And I also think taking action, being of service, are the only real windows to kind of the nobility of the human soul. So I really want to thank all of you. So Brett, as I said, is a climate reality guy who came out of Silicon Valley and thought, what is it that I personally can bring to this struggle? And his notion was to build an app that would make it as easy as possible for people to take action on the climate crisis. Now, I want to tell you, Harriet Sugarman and I started the New York Climate Reality Chapters Coalition 4 or 5 years ago, which very quickly resulted in me doing a weekly call to action over email, where we wrote out what to email and cut it and copy it and paste it, and and that worked well. We have recently stopped doing that entirely and just switched to pushing everybody to use the app. Doesn't mean we don't send out emails about various things, but what we realized is the app actually, first, we're not overloading our membership with too many emails, which is always a question. Second, we were sending those out on Sundays, and the app could respond to things in real time, so that some crisis was happening with a bill you cared about, you could immediately get it on there for people to take action. So it was really extraordinary and powerful. So we're going to, in a little bit, I'm going to help us all get on the app. And even if you're already on the app, there's a QR code we're going to use. And if you're on the app already, please also use the QR code, because we're going to have some fun a little later on and take a bunch of actions. And by using that QR code, if you're already on the app, it's going to let us track how many actions this group is taking, which will be fun. So I'm going to just sort of briefly talk about what the app does. And let's see. And you guys are seeing my screen now, yeah? Okay, so when you turn the app on, you're going to see this, Climate Action Now. And essentially what it does is it then provides a menu of actions you can take and things you can do. And they're also on the app, just so you know, things like articles that you can read. There are videos you can watch. There are little, quizzes you can take. And you don't have to do all of them. You just swipe left and right, which is, I guess, how young people date now. But the thing that I think you're most interested in is these things, where we will ask, politicians will ask heads of corporations to take certain actions. When you click on if you want to write to Senator Feinstein, and you click, you go to her website, you've got to fill a form out before you can put an email in. Climate Action Now actually has a piece built into it that takes care of that, so that you're not wasting your time filling out that damn form. All that you do is you click, yes, I want to take this action, and it immediately takes you to, depending on whether it's a federal or a local or state representative, to that representative. You can click on sending them an email or giving them a phone call, and it's that fast. By the way, all the texts in those emails is completely stuff that you can change the words, you can add sentiments, nothing is stuck. Every time you take an action, you get points, and I'll explain what those points mean in a few minutes. But so in this example, I'm sending a letter to my senator, sending her an email, and then it'll say, do you want to send an email to your other legislator? And yes, I do. Do you want to send one to your governor? Yes, I do. And that quickly, I have contacted my state officials. And every time I take one of those actions, as I mentioned, I've earned points. Now, if you want to, there's also a button you can click that says why. Why is this an important action for you to take? There's another button you can see up on the top right that says sources. You click on that and you'll get a whole bunch of sources about the action that you're taking. The points that I was telling you about, every time you accrue a certain number of points, we plant a tree for you. And that's not just somebody chucking a seed at the ground. This extraordinary organization, Eden Reforestation Projects, actually has folks in disadvantaged communities, subsistence farmers, plant the tree and look after the tree for its lifetime. So anyhow, so it's real. It's not something silly. And it's also benefiting these communities as well. So right now, or anyhow, this was an hour or so ago, 614,000 plus actions have been taken on the app over the course of the last year. Somewhere over 500,000 or around 500,000 of those are actually messages to political leaders and business leaders. And we've planted over 20,000 trees. The reason that I mention how many of those are messages to business leaders is that our aim this year is to get to 1 million messages sent out by the end of the year. We're hoping next year to double that and keep doubling it every year and just make ourselves unignorable. It's not a word, but you know what I mean. So there are some things you can do to help that happen. If you get the app, one of the things that I would suggest is try and make it a habit. So what I do is when I boil my coffee in the morning, I jump on the app for that 2 minutes, 3 minutes that it takes for the water to boil. And I will have taken 10 climate actions before I've had my first sip of coffee. And I tell you, it's a fabulous way to start the day. Also, to help the app, another thing that you can do is tell your friends about it. We need as many people as we can get to jump on this thing. When you get on the app, you will see, I just wanted to point out a couple of things to help you. This is the bottom of your phone. There are these different tabs there. If two things that can help you. One, if you're not seeing California actions and things, if you click the search button at the bottom right of your phone, you can search for California and you can find state level actions and local actions to you in New York or in California, excuse me. The other thing that you can do that I really suggest early on is next to search, there's a button that says me. If you push that button, it'll take you to a profile page. And it's great to edit that profile because it's lovely when this becomes a community. It's lovely when this becomes a source of connection. So that's another thing. The last thing that I'll just mention is if you get on the app and you like the app, we need money. We have engineers and stuff like that. And there are opportunities that will present themselves to help the app out. So please consider that. So let's jump on the app. Brett, do you you want to go ahead and put the QR code up?
Yes, of course. So, but I think we want to get you kind of started, but then we're going to hold off and let's see, Bonnie or someone is going to talk about the California legislative bills, and then we'll come back and start really firing away on the app. But just to get us kind of ready to go, let me show you a screen. And this thing, okay, here we go. We've set a goal for, well, let me first show the screen. Okay, so we've set an arbitrary goal for our action session later in the hour to take 500 actions together as a group. And that number, as you take an action in the app, that number is going to increment. So you're going to take an action, you're going to contact your state senator, and then that number is going to go up by 1. And then as it does that, the line will go around until it reveals the whole blue marble. Over here on the right is a QR code. So this is a wonderful piece of technical magic that we make extensive use of. So whether you have the app or not, if you could take a few seconds now, take out your phone and open your camera app and point your camera at that QR code. And your camera will detect that that's a QR code. It'll kind of zero in on it, and then you'll get a button that you can push, or a notification that you can push, that will take you straight into the app. Now, if you don't already have the app yet, it will take you to your app store so that you can download the app. And you could be doing that in parallel while Bonnie's talking about the California legislation. There's just a few steps you have to go through to set up an account. Now, and then the beauty of this particular QR code is that it has queuing up for you the legislative actions that we want you to take. Okay, so you won't have to go searching for them. The app will give them to you in sequence. Now, one little caveat on that: if you're already using the app, the app downloads 10 actions at a time, and it's already downloaded 10 actions to use, right? So you'll have to swipe through those to get to the bills that we want to lobby for today. I just want to say one other thing about the QR code. Like I say, this particular QR code is going to queue up those actions. We also, every action in the app has its own QR code. This is the geek in me speaking, right? Because I'm a nerd, so I get excited about this stuff. It has its own QR code. What that means is that, and we can give you the QR code for each of the bills that we're supporting. We give you a little JPEG file. You can put that QR code in your emails to people. You can put it on your websites. And then all anybody has to do who's getting your email or visiting your website, or you can put it in your social media posts. All they have to do is do a social media post, support this bill SB, whatever. And then they point their phone, they get the QR code, boom, they're right in the app. They're right on that action to call their legislator. And few touches, it's done. It is so easy. It's so much easier than any other way that's been devised to get someone in and taking action. So I'm going to hand it back over to Bonnie, and she can take it from there.
Great. Thank you, Tim and Brett. That was actually really fun. It was super fun to watch as people took action, the pie going. So maybe we can see the pie along the way, which would be really, really great. Yeah, Tim.
I want to just throw out one quick answer. Crystal said, one concern of mine is that since we are using a script, will legislators possibly use it to filter out such messages? One of the things that has been built into the app is that when you first sign on for the very first time, it gives you the ability to create a customized first line. So Brett, for example, says, I'm a father who's worried about my children in a warming world. I say I'm a member of the Climate Reality Project who sees opportunity in addressing the climate crisis. So there is some variation, but like any of these notes, of course, the more you personalize, the better it is. But it hasn't seemed to be a big problem. I think that that solved that a little bit.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to share my screen. And let's see. I'm a little bit of a wonky setup here. So maybe that'll do it. All right. Can all of you see the bills?
Yes.
I'm assuming that you can. That's great. So just to give a quick overview and kind of to take off on what 350 Bay Area Action was talking about, there were 96 climate related bills in the legislature this session. And how did we choose 11 bills? Okay, we've chosen Climate Reality Bay Area has chosen 11 bills. And we chose them from a number of different sources. Basically, I looked at what the bills were about, and I looked at who wrote the bills, And I also looked at who either sponsored the bills or support the bills. So there is a group called the Climate Reality California Coalition, which is a group of the leaders in different climate reality chapters around California that put together, I think, 4 bills. I looked at the Climate Center, who are sponsoring 2 of the bills that we support, which is AB 2649 by Christina Garcia, Assembly member. It's also now co-authored by Senator Skinner, and I believe there's another senator. So we will go and look at this bill a little bit closer in Ledge Info, just because I think it's an amazing bill. It talks about natural carbon sequestration, supporting small farmers, regenerative agriculture, greening of our urban spaces. So it does a number of wonderful things for natural carbon sequestration. So I'm very excited about this bill, although unfortunately has some opposition. So it does need our help when letting folks know that we support it. The other bill, the Climate Center has sponsored is Senator Dodd, who is my state senator, and Ralph mentioned Senator Dodd earlier. And actually there's a meeting on, I believe, Monday with Senator Dodd, or his office. And he has written a bill called the Community Energy Resilience Act. That bill, it would allow for local municipalities as well as communities to set up what I would consider clean energy microgrids, where they can, for resiliency. So say if it decentralizes the grid so that there can be smaller grids that communities can benefit from, as well as cities and so forth. So I think it has a lot of potential, but again, that's another Climate Center sponsored bill. Another bill that we support was a Sierra Club supported bill, which is financing sea level rise resilience. That was another bill that I identified that was pertinent to what is potentially in the Bay Area, to give communities that are most at risk, and particularly marginalized communities of sea level rise, so the capacity to financially have some adaptation or mitigation around sea level rise. There are a number of other ones. SB 260, that's one that is, there's a lot of movement afoot to try to get that one passed. That would require large businesses to disclose their carbon footprint, basically. And it does have some opposition. So there's a lot of action around trying to support that one and have that one passed. So there were 2 of our bills that didn't make it out of committee. Both of these bills were divestment bills. So asking for divestment from fossil fuels. The one from Senator Wiener and Gonzalez, that would ask that state public retirement funds divest from fossil fuel investments. And the other one was also about divesting in not supporting companies that invest in Russian oil or fossil fuel activity. So unfortunately, so this is part of the barrier to having our bills passed. And is that presently in the Assembly, our present Speaker Rendon has given a lot of power to the chairs of the committees. So basically, these 2 bills were in the Assembly Committee on Public Employment and Retirement, but the Assembly Committee chair would not even hear the bills in the committee. So didn't even allow them to be heard, and basically decided, I'm going to say unilaterally, I don't know, I wasn't there, that these were not something that we should be involved in, is telling people how to invest their money. So that was kind of his excuse for not having the bills heard. We went through a lot of this with our previous District 11 assembly person, Jim Frazier, who was my assembly person, who was the chair of the transportation committee for a long time. And he wouldn't hear any bills on electric vehicles in his committee. And again, these are all Democrats. I just want to point this out. This is not we have a super majority, as was mentioned before. So just to keep that in mind. So all the bills that are still alive are in their appropriations committee. So they all made it through their house of origin. So all the two assembly bills made it out of the assembly and into the Senate through the committee process. But in the Senate, they're in the Senate Appropriations Committee, which is kind of one of the last steps. So now they have to make it out of appropriations and onto the floor of the House, which again, remember at least in the assembly side, the assembly chair of the appropriations committee has the power of whether to remove those bills off of out of committee onto the floor. So again, that chairperson has a lot of power. It's a lot of power in a few hands. So just keep that in mind. And the Assembly Appropriations Committee chair has, not always been, on the side of climate. I'm going to just say that, but my 350 Bay Area Action friends can correct me if I'm incorrect in that. But just to keep that in mind, that at this point, the bills are in the opposite house on appropriations committee. And they're in recess now, and they will come back on August 1st. So I just want to put that out there. Let me see if I can switch to. All right. So now, if you go back and look at this link here, you can go and in this document I'll put in the chat. This is the bills. You can go to this highlighted link and go to the different on Ledge Info. So this is Ledge Info that Ralph referred to. This is the bill I talked about, the Natural Carbon Sequestration and Resilience Act of 2022. And again, it's Christina Garcia. And so the other Senate co-author is Limon, which you can see here, and Senator Skinner. And this gives you an idea. You can see how the bill has been amended. All the strikeouts, the red strikeouts are previous language, and the blue is new language. On Ledge Info, it talks about what the existing law is, and then what the bill will do is how it's set up. So, and there are different categories. So you can go into the text, you can look at the votes. Out of the last committee, out of the Senate Environmental Quality Committee, there were 5 yays and 2 nays. And it shows who the senators were that said yes. Allen, McGuire, Skinner, Stern, and Wachowski. I'm sorry, I probably didn't say that correctly. And then the ones who said no. And then the previous other votes on the bill, you can also see that. And then you can go into the history that shows where it is. It says it's in the Committee on Appropriations, and it's at the Senate side, where here you can see down here. And then it goes more into different bill analysis, so on and so forth. I'm going to also go into looking at what you can do. So if you go to the Ledge Info site, you can sign up to be notified of different bills. You can create a list. Okay, I'm going to go into so I have my subscription. So again, this is the home page for Ledge Info, where you can put in any bill number and go to it, and then it'll pop up what I just showed you here with this particular bill. Okay, so you just put in the bill number, And then, but then I'm signed in because I'm signed up, and I've got my, it wants me to sign in again. So I have all my bills that I'm following. And actually this one, 2026, that passed. It's already law. The governor signed it into law. There was that was a big backroom deal that was done to keep it out of becoming a initiative in the fall. So they finally, Senator Allen got it passed through, and so his bill is becoming law. So that's a great thing. But these are our bills that we've followed. I signed up for them, and I get notifications when it's been assigned to committee, when it's been amended, and you can sign up for all these different notifications if you're signed up for these. All right, so let me just say one other thing. I talked, so you can go, okay, this is the Senate actually the Assembly's website. And, this is a really great place because you can actually watch either the hearings in real time, which can be very exciting, particularly if there's a bill that's really either contentious or you're really concerned about. I mean, you can watch the proceedings, and it's a little bit tedious because you might have to wait through other bills being talked about, but it's super interesting because it gives you an idea of really what's going on at the state level with legislation. But also they're recordings. So here's video broadcasts right here, or audio broadcasts. So you can go back and look at previous discussions or actions on bills in committee as well as on the floor. So going into committees, here are all the Assembly committees. I was trying to figure out, so I know, let's go to one committee, and this is not where our bills are because all our bills are in appropriations, but here you can submit position letters, again, I'll sign into this. Here we go. Let me see if and then you can submit a letter, and it goes to, it will end up going to the author and all the committee members, but we don't have any really bills in that committee. So I'm going to go back out, and but I'm going to go to the Appropriations Committee because that's where everything really is right now, right? And Ralph was telling me that, so you can submit a position email to the committee, and you could probably also submit it to the author, like get the author's email contact or their staff and submit it to, and then, put in a position letter, or just give a, hey, I support this bill, and for whatever reason, or you can put an official letter in as well. But I would say that Ralph was saying that as far as the Appropriations Committee, they're not really very responsive. Once it's made it there, the committee themselves is not necessarily that responsive. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And at this point, just ask, let me, before we move on to actual actions and maybe working with the CAN app a little bit more, are there any questions about all that? I know it's a lot of stuff to unpack, particularly if you haven't had a lot of experience with the legislative action aspect, but it's where we start.
Hey, Bonnie, can I answer one quick question that I saw up on the CAN app, which was,
Sure.
Alice wrote, I think there are studies that show repetitive message fatigue, variations between numbers of unique messages versus numbers of repetitive messages, et cetera, that may influence the response. One of the things we found with this is, obviously, there are more emails that go into federal legislators, and they really don't care. They read the first sentence or two, get the point of it, and don't really go through it, or they even read the title of the email. And as we go down lower and lower, to state and county and then local actions, there are less people sending the emails. So that repetitive thing doesn't happen as much. And frankly, they're more powerful. And we even in New York, we have one person who was sending stuff to her person every single day. She was sending lots of stuff. And her senator called her up and said, "Hey, you seem to know a lot about this. I would love to get together and talk to you because you seem really on top of all the bills." So sometimes it can totally work in favor. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Tim. Dave, I see your hand up.
Yeah, Bonnie, thanks. This has been a great presentation. But just a quick question on the bills that you ran through that the chapter is supporting that we vetted and stuff. Where is that information available? I've seen nothing on it in any of the chapter news.
It has come out in the newsletter. I don't know, maybe you didn't see it in the newsletter. Honestly, I'm really not sure. That maybe that's not a satisfactory answer.
Well,
But
yeah, I'm sorry. I appreciate that. But so I guess it would be very, very helpful because I do track a lot of legislation, but being able to, visually go to a site where I can look at what the chapter is talking about, what they're vetting, because our group here in San Francisco has been doing some of our own legislative, work on stuff, and which somehow we're not really tying into what the chapter's doing, I think.
yeah, I think it's a matter of capacity and, I don't want to, I know we've communicated in our newsletter. We've certainly talked about it with our leadership team, but also this is part of what we're doing today too, is trying to bring more people involved as we go along. So it's all an evolution, but I'm going to put in the chat right now our endorsed bills. And that's the link to I know that when I've sent out communications about this meeting, I have included our locally. I do believe I sent this also to the squad leaders as well. So they all have the link, but again, the communication through kind of the going out, I think it's that I'm going to say it's communication overload. There's so much that goes out. So I had sent an email to all of our squad leaders at our communities, our county squad leaders with these links in to, so I don't know. It depends on how they communicate it. But yeah, so Margot, I see what you're saying. I don't know what's happening with somewhere on the website. I think that would be a good idea, but then people would have to know to go to the website to look. And also we've talked about putting it on the platform, the hub platform. But again, people have to go there to look for it in order to find it. But it did go out in our newsletter early on, I think probably sometime back in May, about the bills. So I don't know how else to communicate it to everyone other than what we've already done. If you have any suggestions about that, I'd sure be open to hearing them. I'm not sure in this day and age, when I think I get at least a couple of hundred emails a day, it's super hard sometimes to keep track of everything.
Yeah, Bonnie,
pop up if you don't mind,
Sure.
because I can't find it, my hand icon. So I do have a suggestion about that, and that is that if there is an email or a weekly message, that there's a standalone message. Here's where you can find this information. Here's what we're doing, and that it's very, very overt and not buried anywhere.
Well, like I said, we do send out a monthly email newsletter, but the issue is when we do, we get a lot of unsubscribers. It's people don't necessarily want all that information. So I hear that you might want it, or there might be people in this group who would like it. The problem is that not everyone shares that. And people start to unsubscribe because they're just getting inundated with too many things. We try to limit what we send out by email, like we send out a reminder for this, I think on Wednesday, for people to sign up. But again, we get more unsubscribers when that happens. So there it's a little bit of, finding that sweet spot between just enough communication and not enough, or, so it is challenging. So Brett.
Yeah, I did want to make a suggestion on that point, because it is a huge problem, the information overload. We're all being blasted with emails. So one of the things that we're doing at Climate Action Now to kind of deal this is sort of an end run around it. What we're about to do here as a group today, when we start taking action with the app, we call that an action party. And so instead of just sending hundreds of emails asking people to take one particular action at a time, we invite people to come to a party. And we have a featured guest. It could be somebody who's an expert on, who's there for 15 minutes. And then we have Q&A. And then we prepared actions in the app for people to take as a group. And we have the goal tracker screen, which you saw earlier. And so it's a lot easier for people to say, yeah, I'll do that. And then they go and you have this huge flurry of activity. And then they've got the app after that, so they can keep doing stuff day after day. And it's more fun. Going back to one of the very first things Tim talked about, these action parties are a lot of fun. People love the goal tracker, and they like doing stuff together, and they can chit chat, while they're sending letters to their legislators. So that would be one suggestion.
I think that's a great suggestion, Brett and Tim. Thank you. We could have like a quote, a mocktail hour. Don't want to encourage alcohol intake, but we could do something like that and have an action. But that's a really great idea. Maybe we can look into doing that, particularly before the session is over, like maybe right before everything goes to the assembly floor, and then really hit our legislators with our bills. I think that's a great idea. Let's see. And then I think that Margot and Audrey also suggested that we do have a place on the website for it. So we can look into that, and we can try to do that. And then maybe we can direct people to that in our newsletters. But again, I think it's really a fine balance between, overloading folks with TMI or whatever, and finding out where people aren't overwhelmed. Okay, so, all right, I think we can go back to the CAN app if folks, there was a question from Audrey about a challenge that she has. Let's see. Yeah, so any other questions then, or I'm gonna say that, Brett and Tim, or Brett, do you want to talk about, or do we want to continue on doing some actions with the app?
Yeah, I think we'd love to, move out of theoretical into reality again. Somebody had asked, so the QR code is up there. Wow, so we've already taken 74 actions. There's only 24 of us in here, so we would have to take 20 actions or something like that. But so let's just take 5 minutes and see how many we can do. And as Brett said, turn your mics on and feel free to talk. And I think Kathy has a question, but let's see how many actions we all can take.
Yeah, and I'd like to, did Kathy want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I went in and I found this in the App Store, and then I had some problems with my email, with the passwords as per usual. And so, but now I've got it downloaded, and then it says, do you have an invitation code? So is there a code? Okay.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, it's 723. One thing, and we can all, this works really well. I mean, we can unmute ourselves. We're a small enough group. We can chat, we can ask questions and so on. By the way, Tim and I were at Climate Reality's Las Vegas training in the beginning of June, and we did this very thing. They had 5 minutes of action, and we had set a goal of 2,000 actions for the 450 people who showed up, the trainees. And by the time we even started the 5 minutes of action, folks had already taken 2,000 actions. And by the end of the 5 minutes, Tim, what was it, 3,700 actions?
No, we were over 4,000. And
Wow.
yeah, it was pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, it was very impressive. And those folks have gone on and they've taken over 17,000 actions since that 5 minutes back in Las Vegas. Now, one of the things, I mean, as you go through the actions that the app is recommending, which concern the legislation, of course, we're not limited to just advocating for a piece of legislation. So, for example, you can create an action to thank thank an organization that has come out in favor of the legislation, right? There's a whole ecosystem of people around each piece of legislation, right? People who are for, people against. You can have people send letters to those who are for. It can also send letters to those who are against, asking them to reconsider. What the app does is it makes it easier to send exponentially more messages. And so really the only limit is our imagination in terms of what you can have. Tutorials on a piece of legislation in the app. You can have questions about it. You can have flashcards on it. You can have pledges. You can have people take the environmental voter pledge. Now, Tim and I and a couple other people on our team, we can't do it all. So we've created a training program for any of you who want to join our content team. It basically only takes about a half hour to learn how to put your own actions into the app. Because average app users can't do it. All the actions are curated, and so it's by invitation only. We have no problem inviting your groups to put your actions into the app, but even then they get a look over before they get published, into the app. So again, I want to remind you what Tim said. People can further personalize these emails, and that's always great. But the emails generally are pretty well written, and as Tim said, they all begin with a personal statement about you. So when the legislator's staffer, or even when the legislator himself is or herself is skimming through the emails, the very first thing they see is a personal statement, and that tells them immediately that this is not purely a boilerplate, right? This is a real person. And these emails are being sent from you. They're not being sent from the app. So when you send that email through the app, we're actually posting the contents of that email into their contact us form on the government website. So they're getting this communication. It is coming from you. They don't even know you're using the app to do this, right? They may notice that they get a lot more emails from you than they used to get.
One thing that we've been doing in New York with the climate reality chapters, and a lot of the chapters have sort of developed a model where we talk about business, we might have a speaker, but we also set aside a couple of minutes to get on the app and take actions. And the wonderful thing about it, and I would also say the wonderful thing about the Las Vegas training is you're not just listening to a bunch of theories, you're actually actively doing something and making something happen. And I just think that that's a big lift. Brett asked whether he needed to be concerned at all about sending 10 or more emails in one day to his representative. I think you want to be slightly careful about that. I think the higher up the food chain they are, if it's a federal representative or a federal senator, they're not they're not reading through this stuff. They're tabulating it. And I wouldn't worry about it quite as much, but you can skip actions and go on to another action and come back, to those things at a later time if you want. Margot and Mary Ruth asked about about doing a training to put actions into the app. Brett, could you put an email address or something in there? So, and we'll just set you up to have a meeting with Matthew Volrath, who's our content coordinator, who does those trainings. And I'll just mention to you, I'm a complete idiot about computer stuff, and I can put actions in the app. So, so you won't have any problem.
Yeah, it really is as easy as
Question
filling out
first.
a form online. You fill out a form, you push a button, and that's how you do it. I'm putting Matthew's email into the chat right now.
Yeah, I think that would be great if, Audrey, if you're interested in that, maybe we could open it up to other folks who might also be interested in doing a meeting with someone to come up with our own content. I do have a question. So when I go on to the actions, I did the 2 that were our bills, but I can only find 2 of them. I don't know if you put all the bills on there or
All the bills are on there, and they should be. Were you able to scan the code, Bonnie?
Yes, I definitely did that. And I saw that when I did those 2, it came up, but I can't. So there's a lot of kind of stuff scrolling through that is not related to our.
Yeah, let me show you where you can go to find those particular bills. The app should be queuing up those particular bills for you. You're saying it's not doing that for you. So
I'm looking at tell Governor Newsom about the CARB scoping plan.
I'll investigate that later, but there's another way to do this, Bonnie, which I'm going to switch and share my phone screen with you to show you. Because there's actually, what? Oh my goodness. I've never been asked to do this before. Trust.
So Bonnie, I can also tell you, if you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a search tab.
Yes.
If you click on that,
right
up at the top, you'll see a search bar and type in California. And that should bring you to all the California actions.
Is it possible to show that on the screen? I don't see mine. I'm in the wrong place.
Yeah, oh, here we go. Now it looks like maybe it's working. Okay, are you all seeing my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, down in the bottom, there's a search button. I'm going to touch that.
Which is hard to see on the screen. If your screen's like mine, my Zoom chat is covering it, but there's a search at the bottom of that screen on the bottom right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you'll see right here, there should be very near the top of your search screen, California actions.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll see 3 of them, and then it says browse all 64. And then you can, the other thing you could do is if you only want to do the recommended laws, you can just type the number of the law up here in this section.
Got it.
In the search field. So you could do 2649. Oh, I have to do it over here. 49. Yeah, so there's AB 2649 on the natural carbon sequestration. I can touch that, and then I'm set. Josh Becker is my guy. There's my message to him. And okay, and says for more points, you want to contact your governor. I'll go to Gavin as well. A lot of this is about raising the decibel level. As Tim said, they aren't reading, they're all too busy to be reading all of our emails, but they do have staffers who are keeping tallies.
Right, that's right. They click off how many are opposed, how many support,
Right.
and those numbers count.
They look at the tallies, right? They're not going to, read your immortal prose or our immortal prose, and then write you a lengthy response. You'll get a boilerplate response, and you will get it probably for most of these folks. But now you know that you've sent a signal, right? And the more signals we send, the more they're going to be influenced, which is why we've made it really easy for people to send signals with the app. What we need are more people sending signals, right? That's why Tim and I are here with you today, because we're recruiting troops, to be sending signals.
Brett, can you put the tracker back on?
Yeah. And that's Tim's polite way of saying, shut up, Brett.
No, you feel free to keep talking, but.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, we're almost there.
Well, I don't think we're going to make 500 with only 24 of us, but that's, I don't know how long we've been at this, but that's pretty extraordinary for a handful of people in a few minutes.
And I know
It
when
is-
I get off, I'm gonna do the rest of my the rest of my bills and other things too. This is really exciting, because I'm not very tech savvy, and I'm so old school. It's hard to get me to shift into something, a new thing, but this is really fun. I mean, it is really fun. So I could do that while I'm brewing my tea in the morning. Kathy, I see your hand up.
Oh, I was just going to ask. So we've been trying to. I'm the chair of our local Progressive Democrats in Benicia, and we've been trying to incorporate actions at the end of our meetings. And so I'm thinking I can refer people to. I'm going, geez, I'm going to refer people to this at our next meeting. But is there a way to track actions like I can say, okay, this is the Progressive Dems. How many actions did our members take, or anything to?
Yeah, that's a good question. And there is. What we can do, remember I gave everybody for this group the invitation code 723. What we can do, Kathy, is create your own invitation code, which you would then, and your own QR code. So what you want to do is give the QR code your own your own group's personal QR code and the invitation code. And then when people use those, then the app can track. I mean, it knows that person came from you, and it records that action in our database. And then we can send you weekly reports telling you how many people have taken action, that came from you, taken action with the app. And for those of you who are concerned with fundraising, this can be very helpful to your fundraising, because the donors want to know what is your impact. And if you can get a lot of people using the app, you'll have a big impact. You'll have some real hard numbers that otherwise are very hard to come by. I mean, as you know, when you send an email out and you ask people to do it, usually your email system can tell you how many people clicked a link, but it can't tell you what they did, after they click the link. Whereas the app will only can tell you, yes, they signed this, they sent this letter on this bill to their legislator.
And before I go on to Audrey and Margot, so Kathy, so I just have a question, because Climate Reality, of course, is a C3, so we can't be partisan, but Climate Action Now, you're not really a C3, right? You're not Climate Reality, right?
We're not Climate Reality. Climate Reality loves the app and is promoting it to their members. But when I started this, I agonized whether to do this as a for-profit or as a 501c3 or even a C4. And I'm not doing this for money. I'm not taking a salary. Tim is not taking a salary. This is about having the maximum impact. And I didn't want to have any handcuffs. I mean, even when you're a 501c4, there's handcuffs. You're being regulated and monitored. You have to do reporting. I said, screw that. I want to have all the power that a corporation can have, to advocate this, advocate for action. So, you can put actions into the app there's a headline that says recommended by you, but you can also put actions that you don't recommend. And so then you're not on the hook, right?
Hmm.
So the app can actually become a vehicle for you to advocate for actions that maybe as a 501c3 you wouldn't do it. I mean, Climate Reality National, they're very careful about, they vet it by lawyers, before they decide what actions they want to have recommended by them, but they put in other actions as well.
And I will assume that you monitor though, so you don't get, bots and that sort of thing.
There's no way anybody can send a bot through the app.
Yeah.
This is not like Twitter is an open platform. You can write programs, to do that stuff. You can't write a program to automatically send messages, through the app, through the Climate Action Now app. Every message that gets sent, there's a human being with an account has to push the button, right, to send it. Absolutely everyone. And there's just no other way around that.
Great. Thanks, Brett. Audrey.
I think you answered this in the course of your of what you just said. It seemed like when I first looked at the app, I could see who had submitted almost every action, and now I wasn't seeing that so much. And then you mentioned that you can optionally put in recommended by, and then I saw something that was recommended by 350 Humboldt.
Right.
But otherwise, we don't necessarily see who submitted or wrote an action. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's up to the action creators
Okay.
to say whether or not they want the attribution.
So as a user, I totally understand you wanting the freedom of not being a C3, but as a user and as recommending it to other users, to sort of rapidly go through these things means not reading them super thoroughly. So I wonder what standards or what sort of framework you have for what you put, for what passes to go on the app, so that I'm not accidentally advocating something that I don't want to.
Well, I recommend that you actually read, read the messages. I do. And in fact, we hear from a lot of people, this is the main way they learn about what's happening. They just learn from reading the boilerplate messages that we've written. And then as Tim showed you, there's a Y button at the bottom of each, you can flip it, and then there's sources. So absolutely, you should be.
Right, there's sources within the Y, right?
Yeah. So we work very, very hard to try to give people good sources so they can make up their own minds. Now, having said all that, I'm sure you're right, Audrey, that, we've developed trust, with our community, and, they don't get blowback. They don't get blowback from legislators, when they send emails through. At least that hasn't happened yet. And I haven't heard of it at any rate. And so after a while, people get really comfortable using the app, and a lot of people just use our recommended text along with their own personal statement, at the top. But everybody,
you've done a beautiful job with it. It's just it's a really elegant tool.
Well, thank you.
It's really great. And I'm really excited about it. And I'm excited to hear that Kathy with our Benicia Progressive Dems is going to take it into that venue, and maybe we can do others at the same.
I have two questions. The first is, I'm on the California actions list, and I'm seeing 3 different actions, I think, for SB 260. So my first question is, do you, if you've got several people writing actions for the same bill, do you just include everybody's? And then my second question is that there are a number of bills that are not on this list that are being endorsed by Climate Reality Bay Area. So I'm assuming that means that nobody has specifically offered up that bill as an action on the app.
Yeah, that's what that would suggest. I mean, the principal author in the app of the California bills has been Bill Murphy, who I'm sure is known to many of you. He bird dogs the legislature like nobody else, or maybe Bonnie rivals him. And so he's been our principal California legislative author. It's not all that, I mean, what you say is I would rather there not be like 3 messages, for a particular piece of legislation. On the other hand, again, as I said before, it's about raising the decibel level. And the more legislators hear from their constituents that they're concerned about issue, those 3 actions are probably going to have very different letters, right? So it'll be a different message. And they're not sitting around remembering that Margot sent me this, you supported this bill on Monday, and now it's Tuesday, and now she's supporting the bill again. She's just wasting my time. Nah, that's not happening, right?
I want to answer that in a different way.
Yeah, go ahead.
Margot, we actually do try not to have repetitive stuff. Sometimes regarding a bill, and I don't know the specific one you're looking at because as a New Yorker, I'm not seeing the California bills in front of me right now, but sometimes there can be let your senator know, and then there might be another one saying, let the finance committee know, that lists all the finance committee people. And so it may list as one thing, but be different. But we try not to have repetitive actions in there.
Right.
Thank you. I love the app.
Thank you. One thing I'd like to just come off of the goal tracker screen to show you something else that Tim didn't touch on, but it's kind of one of my favorite features of the app, is the community feed. And I want to tell you that everything in the app is there for a reason. And the reason is to try to get people to take climate action, right? There's no extraneous feature. I consulted with behavioral psychologists around the country. How do we get people to get engaged? One of the big things is to make it super easy. Check, we've done that. The other thing is, what are other motivations, that people have for taking action? And hopefully this is going to work. Okay, here we go. All right, so here you can see my phone again. Down at the bottom, there's a community button, and I'm going to touch that. And then you'll see, it looks a lot like Twitter. Twitter was our model. But every time you take an action with the app, the fact that you did it is published into the community feed where people who follow you can see it. And we're just about to release a feature where you can see all the actions being taken by everybody, and then you can follow whatever people you want. But as you can see, here I just did this a minute ago. I told the governor to support AB 2026. What I like to do is come through here. There's Audrey. Every couple times a day, and I give a like. Now, if Audrey has given the app permission to send her notifications, then when I touched that thumbs up icon, she got a notification on her phone saying, Brett just liked this action that you took. That's very motivating for people, right? That's dopamine, when you see, oh, somebody's recognized it. That's why it's there, folks. I mean, that's the only reason this feature. I encourage you all, if you get using the app kind of on a regular basis, go into the community feed when you're getting your coffee, like Tim, while your coffee's boiling, take a bunch of actions, but then go over to the community feed and like what other people are doing. And these attaboys or attagirls kind of really get people notice, and it motivates them to want to take more action. And then you can re-comment, you can post. Yeah, Tim. And then, one more thing. I'm sorry, if I could just say one more thing. When you finish, this is a federal action I'm going to take here. When you finish, hardly anybody does this, and I really am sad about this because it's not obvious. At the end, when you get the screen that says how many points you earned, down at the bottom, there's a share button. And if you touch the share, and you get extra points if you share the fact that you took that action. Okay, so then that brings up your sharing stuff. And I can go over to say to Twitter, and I can say, there it is. Food donations are a win-win solution for people. and I will tweet that. Now I have a couple hundred followers, on Twitter. And then they're going, oh, well, what's that all about? Right. And so what we're trying to do is get network effects. So I just encourage everybody to share with your social feeds, what you're doing in the app, and then they'll get curious. And the very fact that you're doing it is leadership, right? People do what their friends do, but they don't do it if they don't know what their friends are doing. So this is really good. Yeah, sorry, Tim, back to you.
Can you just chuck it back to the goal tracker? Because I know I'm sure Bonnie knows, we're sort of over our 5 minutes, I would think by now, but well, that's great.
Yeah, Bonnie, whenever, it's up to you, however you want. I mean, I can spend some more time on this, but.
Yeah, so a couple of things. First of all, I want to say that, obviously if folks have to go, that's fine. But first, before we get too much more, because I think we can keep the room open for questions and more discussion and more comments. But I do want to make sure we thank our 350 Bay Area Action team, who were amazing with all that information. And also thank Sue for running a wonderful Zoom program for us. And also our CAN people, which is really cool. I mean, I think it's just wonderful, this app. I mean, I'm really excited about it. So I would just want to say that, and how important this work, and thank everyone who is here today, because honestly, this is such an important issue for future generations, for our Earth. And I appreciate everyone's commitment to it. So I just want to say that. But with that said, I think I'm happy. We are scheduled till 1. We don't have to take up all that time, but we are here. So if folks have more questions and want to have more discussion and get more actions while we're here. So I think, Brett, you were saying something, or
300.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, I did also want to just encourage people. Audrey had put the link to the how to sign up to get on a list to meet with legislators. So Audrey, do you mind putting that back in again? And then also, Brett, can that be put on the CAN app so that people can sign up through the CAN app for that? And how would they find it? I guess too, that would be another question.
Well, the app prioritizes the recommended actions based mainly, there's a number of things it looks at, but the main thing is your geography. So like if you're in Santa Clara, if we have an actions for people in Santa Clara, that will be probably the first thing that gets recommended. And then if we don't have one for your city, we see if there's one for your state. So it will almost certainly, if we put an action in the app and we specify that it's for California, it will almost certainly be seen by anybody who does say more than 10 actions in the app. And I would really like to do that, because I think sending emails and making phone calls is fantastic. The only thing more fantastic is getting, face to face, with your representative. And so we'd like to use the app to help promote that. And, you may see a very significant uptick in the number of people willing to meet with their legislators once we start publishing that action. What the action will do is say, sign up to meet your California legislator. And when they say do it now, that will take them to your sign up form. And then they can then type in their information for you. And then it's up to you. Well, it looks like it's been a long meeting. I mean, we're almost up to 3 hours. And our goal tracker says, I think folks are flagging. But as Tim said at the outset, it's really been an honor to meet with all of you. You are the real deal. You are the people that are facing the problem and stepping up and being grown-ups about it and dealing with it. So kudos to all of you. And we'll continue to support you as best we can.
Great. Well, I'm, like I said, I'm really excited, and hopefully maybe even 350 Bay Area Action can kind of tap into this as well. Who knows? I don't want to speak for you, but it's something
No,
to
but I can speak for me. I am going to bring it. I am going to take it. I'm on the board of 350 Bay Area Action. I don't think I have to take it to the board. I think I can just take it to the legislative committee, because I would like to add this to our toolbox, our tool set to get word out about actions. And so, and I would, I love the fact that we can add our name to that. We suggested this because that's going to inspire some people, and our mailing list is like 20,000 people. So it's it could help a lot.
It could help a lot. And Mary Ruth and Kathy and anyone else, I did put my email address in the chat. And so
Okay.
Walter@climateactionnow.com. And so if you want us to kind of get you set up with your own invitation code and your own QR code, that's really easy for us. It takes us about 15 minutes to get you set up in our system. You need to invest half an hour to learn how to put actions into the app. M. Vollrath, VOLLRATH at Climate Action Now. Matthew is our director of content. Really, really fine young man.
Yeah, I copied his address for sure.
Show you how to do that. And then we have weekly content meetings. We have a wonderful group of about a dozen people who volunteers, who contribute, to the actions. And then there's a number, somewhat larger universe of people who don't come to their content meeting. Anyway, would love to work with you guys, help you get the message out and get people taking action.
Well, my co-presenters are all on the leadership team as well, and I think we'll be reporting on this at our meeting on
Mary
Wednesday.
Ruth, we're also very open to show up and do something like this for your organization or any environmental organization that anybody on the call happens to be involved with. So we, as Brett said earlier, it's really about getting as many friends onto this thing as possible to keep growing the numbers of messages we're delivering.
Well,